Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Lethal Sales. Tonight's topic is electric vehicles, EVs, and I'm sure this is going to be very interesting. Larry, you want to start off?
I'm actually going to defer to Mr. Smith because Mr. Smith has had a much a much wider, more vast experience with electric vehicles than I have. So, Mr. Smith,
Peter, you're
your
on.
thoughts, sir?
Well, so our, I guess this is a very complex topic and a topic I love talking about because of my experience with them, not only at the retail level, the ownership level, but I've also had experiences in the supply of critical materials to EVs through mining and other things. So there's a big challenge out there, and since this is a sales orientated show, I won't get into the pros and cons and everything else, but I'll follow it up on basically our good friends John Ellis and Darren Cage's show or clubhouse room, BEV everything, that EVs are here to stay. In fact, we're looking at one to my left on the screen, and with Tony driving one. So they're here. The question is, how are we giving the correct information to the public, and how are we showing them that it's either the right vehicle for them or alternative vehicle for them? That's the main challenge in this whole atmosphere and of our industry, is that we're looking at it too much as either ICE or EV, and that's not the right way of looking at it. We should be looking at it as a viable form of transportation for our customers. We shouldn't be there making their decision for them. We should be helping them find a solution for their transportation needs. So in doing so, we have to educate our staff on how to do it. And that's something that is absolutely lacking in this industry. I've heard horror stories. I've experienced horror stories. Everyone has them. But I will defer to someone who just picked one up 5 days ago. So I'm going to talk to our good friend Tony T and say, hey, what other than the affordability and the price of it, what made you choose the ability to drive a beautiful car like that?
Look out, he's doing a walk around.
6-point walk around. Tony, you're on mute.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
So I was showing you the car because my question is, why do they make them so ugly?
Oh, I think your car is beautiful.
Do you really?
Yeah, I actually like the looks of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I might be one in a few, but I think the car is a good looking car. I prefer the look of that over the RAV4.
Can you see it now?
So it's, yep.
I don't know. I
think it's sexy.
So I did a video on it the other day, and the thing I was saying about it was I have 3 types of anxieties going on with this car. Number one, the anxiety about how I don't like how it looks. That's anxiety number one. Number two is lease anxiety, mileage on a lease. And then number 3, of course, is range anxiety. So I bought a car that I now have 3 things I'm anxious about. And I just wonder if other people who buy these vehicles or lease these vehicles have those similar anxieties. So I'll leave it at that and leave it as an open question, because I know range anxiety is a big deal.
Tony, we've recently, Peter and I have started an adjunct company You're well aware of extended service contracts and things like that. We have an extended pretty contract. So if you pay us a certain amount of money each month, you can call us and we'll tell you how attractive the car looks. For a little extra, we'll tell you how attractive you look in the car. It's
Yeah,
just supply and demand, my buddy, right? Tell him, Russell, nature affords
Listen,
back.
you know what? I was going to add to it, that it must also include a full detail inside and out, though.
well, the good book says, be anxious about nothing, but in everything, with prayer and petition, and with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and his peace, which transcends all understanding, will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. So I'm going to just leave all those anxieties at his feet.
Okay.
How's that?
So I will address a couple things that you talk about as an EV owner since 2000 and I think it was 2016 when I got my first one. Range anxiety, yes, absolutely, you get it, and you're also talking to someone who's actually run out of juice in an electric car. So I understand what it's like, what has to happen, and the challenges around it. But I can tell you, in 500,000 kilometers in an EV, it only happened to me once, and it was my stupidity, and it was based on temperature. It wasn't based on mileage or anything like that. And it was right at the beginning because I didn't understand the consumption of power in cold temperatures. You become very, how would you say, intelligent on exactly how much power is being used. It's like using your cell phone and looking at the battery and knowing how long you have left in it to talk or to receive something, or do you plug in and wait 5 minutes to go to make that call uninterrupted. It's something you adjust to. It's very simple, and after about the first 3 months of ownership, you are acclimatized. Lease anxiety, yeah, no, you turn around and the issue with lease anxiety is it's the exact same thing as finance. You just have a subconscious mind that mileage costs you. Well, it does on the finance as well. Your car depreciates faster if you do more mileage. So that's the issue. And the third is the exterior of the vehicle. Trust me, it's not an Aztec. So it's a good looking car, and that whether you like it now, it'll grow on you.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You got some older guys on this call. Let's jump right past the Aztec, which was horrendous, and go to the AMC. Remember the Pacer and the Javelin and the Matador?
How about the
How about a
Gremlin?
Roadmaster, Larry? You probably had a Roadmaster, right?
Hey,
Buick Roadmaster. I did not, but I don't quite think that was as ugly as the Pacer, which looked like a bathtub, or
Well,
the Gremlin or the Javelin.
They work for Wayne though.
Yeah.
they brought it back to life in, what is it, 68, 80, yeah, 88, 89, something like that. Maybe it was sooner than that. Hey, so I apologize for being late. Unfortunately, I won't be able to stay because I have an emergency repair over at my daughter's house. And then I don't even know if I'll be there tomorrow night or next Wednesday. So I'm going to say for at least 5 years, I haven't been on a vacation. And my wife and I are leaving Friday morning for a week to hit the road. And although I tend to always work anyway, this is a little bit different because I'm going to make this all about her. This is
Good
her
for
time.
you.
Instead
Good
of
for you,
flying
Russ.
and stuff like that, we're actually going to be on the road. So I want her to know that this time, because she's really excited and planning some really cool things. Some of them are not really cool, but that's okay. I'm going to act like it. But anyway, I just want to say I love you guys. I apologize for being late. Tony, I will be in touch with you on a couple of things tomorrow, but
Great.
God bless you all and have a great evening. Okay.
Stay healthy. Enjoy
Okay.
your well-deserved
Thank you.
vacation.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Enjoy.
bye.
Thank you.
So on that note, Jeff's coming off vacation. Russell's going on vacation.
I never
Let's,
get a vacation.
Yeah, what? No one's giving me vacations. So let's have a conversation. Jeff, what do you think about EVs?
Well, I think there's something to be said for styling, since Tony brought it up. You know, I mean, you look at like the new Prius or the latest model, that thing is cool looking. I know it's not strictly EV, but man, what a great step up in styling for that. Why can't they do that with EVs? You know, is it a cost thing? It's really strange that they all, you can almost spot them, you know, a half a mile away without even knowing what it is. And obviously on like the, you know, some of the electric cars, you can tell by the headlights, you know, coming at you that it's an EV, but, you know, and I guess the Tesla truck is the worst of them all. You know, who came up with that and signed off on it?
Jeff, I saw that. I saw one of those on the road. It is really a strange looking car. It is almost, I'm not being facetious, it's almost like they intentionally said, let's really make these lines ugly and disturbing.
Yeah.
It's hideous, Larry. I saw one the other day on the street. It's absolutely hideous. Give me a Hummer. I'll take one any day over that.
Well, and you know, again, as nutty as Musk is, maybe they're going for the Moonlander type style, you know?
Maybe. I also
There's
think
Howard, there's about 14,000 Tesla employees that would gladly help him get to the moon with no return flight, right? After the layoffs.
Yeah, that and Tesla, who designed the dashboards? I mean, as technologically savvy as I am, Larry, I wear real watches every day other than when I'm working out. And give me some dials on my dashboard. Who wants a giant iPad on your dashboard?
Well,
I mean, really?
I thought that about, you know, when everybody had that go to, you know, a screen in the car. And a lot of them still look like you just took a tablet, you know, it was an afterthought, and smacked it on the dashboard. I said this on another show, I think maybe Wendy's show or something, but, you know, I lean more towards the luxury interior because that's what I'm looking at a lot more than the exterior. And, you know, man, I haven't driven a Tesla, but I sat in them and I've been driven in them. And I'm like, man, it's very pedestrian. And I think that's what they're going for because nobody's dressing it up. And if everything's going to be controlled by a screen and a mouse, that's where it's going, I guess.
It's almost like non fancy chic, if that makes any sense. It's like, you know, dressing down or wearing sneakers with a suit or army boots. It's almost like he's more utilitarian with the inside of the car, with the whole concept, you know, like I said, kind of dumbing it down, but look, you know, but style wise.
Yeah. And you can't tell me that giant screen is not distracting. I mean, I can tell you, I have a Genesis GB70. That's what I wound up getting last year, which I like a lot. Part of my prerequisite when I was shopping cars was how big that damn iPad is. And the Genesis they won me over a little bit because of the rest of the dashboard. But you know what though? I've actually turned off some of the features on the GB70 because it's overkill. I don't need cameras. I don't need video screens popping up on my dashboard. I know how to use the side view mirror. Been doing it a long time.
Well, maybe Howard, maybe Musk's next move is to buy up all the body shops. This way he can keep you distracted. It's a fortune to fix these damn things. There's probably some ulterior profit motive in this.
I would hope so.
Just remember that the generation that wants them is the generation that grew up with them in their hands, right? You have an entire generation of kids that have known nothing other than having a phablet of some description in their hands, right? Like
Joshua, it's the same generation that grew up listening to Kanye West. No wonder their brains don't work.
And well, and go back to Tony, what are your feelings on the interior?
Oh, I think it's really a cool car on the inside. It has the same gauge cluster as the Prius, which I agree with you is a really great looking car. By the way, it won Motor Trend's Car of the Year, but it has this gauge cluster. If I can somehow manipulate it, that sits out, kind of out in the windshield. It's not a heads-up display, but if you haven't sat in one, you should give it a try. And the level of technology and features, and this is not a loaded one. This is an XLE front-wheel drive, but you can see it panel moonroof, automatic, wireless charging. Got cameras all over the place looking at everything, and some things I don't want it to look at. Power seats and heated and I mean, it's just a loaded car in the entry level. And I think you see that a lot in electric cars. And I think that's what drives the price up so much on these. I would have never gotten this car at, anywhere near sticker. I'd never pay that kind of money for a car like this. But I think they have so much technology in them that it just drives up the price. So it's not affordable for the average American.
Well, in that factor, the manufacturers, I believe, think that anybody who is driven by the technology of batteries and EVs is looking for maximized technology, and therefore is including it in their optionization of the vehicle. If you look at something that has both electric and ICE versions, the actual differential is not that great. It's $5,000-$7,000. But when you look at something that doesn't have a comparative vehicle, it's significantly higher because you look at a car that has the ability to buy an entry level where you can't with a BEV. So that's a challenge in itself. Michael, you're awfully quiet.
Hey guys, I go back to history, and I'm quoting Shakespeare. To EV or not to EV? That is the question.
Yeah, but that was a discussion of whether to commit suicide or not. And I'm sure the people at Ford that lost the $4.5 billion are electing to not be. So I'm just trying to give it some texture to it.
You mean those people that invested in an EV and the price went down by half or more this year going forward?
No, listen, I'm sure anybody that paid 30 grand over list for a Lightning and then saw it cut the other way, I'm sure they were good sports about it.
Yeah. That's what they call going over like a fart in church. Everybody's looking around and going, not me. I've been visiting websites for car dealers all week, past 2 weeks. And what I'm finding is that nobody has EVs on their website but one, Volkswagen. I don't know why or what the deal is, but it's a Connecticut thing, and the governor here is saying, hey, no ICE vehicles will be sold after 2035. I was like, how can you mandate something a decade into the future?
Well, prohibition has proven what happens when you tell people they can't have something that they want. You get all the wrong unintended consequences. But in this case, it's triply stupid because not only can't you do it, you don't have the capacity to sell those vehicles. You don't have the capacity to charge all those vehicles. It seems like the common logic here would be make EVs available to anybody that wants them, train the salespeople so they can show the alternative. Obviously, some of these OEMs were smart enough to go in the hybrid direction, which makes sense if you're not, completely sold on EV or ICE, you can split the difference. But the biggest state for electric vehicle sales is California, which I believe everyone on the program, unless they're related to Gavin Newsom, would admit this is also the state that makes the least sense of any of the fine states in the United States of America. They just decided to raise the wage is now $20 an hour. Great. 12,000 people got laid off. People were getting their hours cut back, and people can't afford food now. So I think it's the same kind of thing. I'm not exactly sure when they'll wake up and realize the mandate they're presenting makes no sense. It's just crazy. But I mean, having said that, Tony's having a great time. John Ellis swears by electric cars. Peter enjoyed his. If you want one, get it. Howard knows by now that I lean towards pizza. But if I said to Howard, all you can eat is pizza, and that's it from now on, I think I'd have an unhappy dining partner here. Would that be correct, Howard? And then we're going to jump to Joshua, who made some really salient points, and love to hear more from him.
I do love a good pizza, though, Larry. Just to be clear.
You shot my whole damn argument to hell. I'm not calling you.
I'm sorry.
I know you're always good for some pizza and some good EV comments.
No, so it's true. It's if you're forced to do something, you're never going to jump into it. It's like you're going to go to Disney World every single vacation in your entire life moving forward. Are you going to love it, or are you going to push back on it? It's a challenge that people don't seem to understand, and then when you add in other conditioning factors like government, it brings that challenge to be even greater. No matter how good it is or how bad it is, it's a pill that not many want to swallow. So now, Josh, being the youngest on this call, and I'd love to hear what your opinion is based on, one, your demographic, and two, what you think is moving forward in this industry.
Well, that's a lot to unpack. So first part, as a consumer, based on a family, an interesting family dynamic where we bought the house we're in with my in-laws. So there's 4 adults in the house. 10-year-old, a very, very busy 10-year-old. I drove 3, I drove an S, I drove an X and a Y. I loved all of them but I got out of them like it's a hobby car. Like it was, the acceleration on all of them was just smile inducing. The ability to stop was smile inducing. The features and functions of it, everything to me was like the first time I picked up an iPhone. Everything was intuitive. It was easy to use. I felt immediately confident. My wife absolutely loved the Y. She got in it. It's like, oh, look at this gigantic panoramic roof. And everything was easy for her to use. She loved how the functionality that it was her aunt that brought her Y up from Milton to where we live. And like we loved just about everything else about it until we found out how much it was. The stuff that we were shopping and all the things that we shopped that ended up being purchasing a 24 Camry hybrid 4 weeks ago, somewhere in there. We couldn't justify the expense. We just couldn't justify the expense because it was, don't quote me on this, but it was just knocking on the door to get the car, to get a Y. And she really enjoyed the 3, which would have cost less, and she couldn't justify the S. She didn't really like it. Was too the sports car E. It was too big. But she didn't like the 3, so it was a Y or nothing. And $1,800-$1,900 a month, just not from a Tesla standpoint, it didn't make sense for us. Not financially, not breaking that barrier financially. Have towed the way we needed to. I've got a Suburban. I've now needed my Suburban 6 times since I said I was going to sell it, and I'm really debating the added expense. And even keeping my Suburban along with the brand new Camry, it's still less than the cost of the Tesla. So it just didn't make sense. I've driven lots of hybrids. Like I drove all the Volvos. I love them. The 2 that made the most sense for us, the XC60 and XC90, I love them. I would have driven off the lot with a Black Edition XC60 if I could have got her to justify the same price point per month as the Tesla. It was $1,900 or whatever it was. But I absolutely loved it. From the alternative standpoint, from the technician in me, it's an absolute nightmare right now. And I say that from both sides of the coin, that this service managers can't get technicians to go to training. At least that's what they're telling me. And the technicians are telling me that they aren't allowed to go to training, which is a problem. So it means they're both right, they're both wrong, and they're not talking it through like professionals. So
Hey,
that's
Josh,
a problem.
just a question. If you know, and I know Peter knows, he's my stat man. What percentage of the people that buy EVs are women, Peter or Josh? Do you know? Because I don't.
That I don't know, but I do know the stats. So one of my buddies is an Audi Tech EV specialist, Stefan DeSantos. I know that his store in Vaughan is in 2022, and he told me this because his GM told him this. In 2022, 1 in 20 cars were hybrids or EV. The end of 23, 1 in 5 were full electric. So that's e-tron, whatever. I can't remember what the name nomenclature is at Audi's, but 1 in 5 of their sales through 2023 was full electric. So I don't know what the percentage of those are women, but I do know that 20% of their business going full electric at an Audi store, which has been predominantly high horsepower, high compression, sporty luxury for 50 years. That's a big indicator of some massive changes. But they still
Peter,
don't have enough
idea?
EV techs in the shop. They only have 2 EV techs in the shop, and one of them is my foreman, and he's no longer on the bench. He's now full-time non-working foreman. So they only have 1 full-time EV tech in a shop of 12. So
that's Joshua. That's a great step. That means that EVs have now reached the status of ICE with being told we can't get your car in for a month or 2.
You're not wrong.
Hey, Larry.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I consulted my friend Google, and 67% of EVs are bought by men. By default, 33% women. Edmunds conducted a study last year on sentiment. 71% of men said they would consider an EV versus 34% for women. So it's interesting there. And also,
not to be misogynistic on that stat, Howard, but is that 67% of men buying the car, or is that 67% of men on the title? Because as a traditional,
That's a poll.
Joshua, we all agree with you. Bruce Springsteen is a liar. He's not the boss. Mrs. Springsteen is the boss. We get it.
Right. No, I hear that. I'm just telling you, this is the facts. The registration. Okay. This is by registration. That's all. No one's ever going to have an accurate number other than registration. So that's it. But at the end of the day, but if you look at the sentiment, it matches up. that's that's aligned. You know, as far, you know, Larry, something on the EV, as you know, we're talking about this here. I'm reminded 14 years ago, to give you an all idea, just to remember how long this has been taking to get here. 14 years ago, I had to install charging stations in my Nissan stores. Okay. It was because the first Leaf was launched in 2010. And I remember getting a letter. I embraced it. The smarter thing is I should have taken all that money I spent on those damn chargers and bought Tesla stock. I would have made a fortune. But but
Well,
you know, but you know, you go to today, you know, as I said, I just bought a Genesis a year ago or so. I thought about an electric for about 3 seconds. But as I've shared, Larry, you know, I'm an avid skier. I'm hopping in. The last thing I want to do is have to worry about charging my car. You know, hybrid.
Exactly.
I can see hybrid. I see hybrid a lot in the future. And I bet on it, just so you know. 2 years ago, my fraternity brother took his company public. They produce charging stations. I thought, great. Me and my other fraternity brothers, we invested. We got in on the IPO. That stock is down 85%. All right. And I've recently seen some other companies that are involved in infrastructure have gone belly up. So it is telling.
Well, yeah,
So-
We've got a long ways to go.
Michael, didn't you have a stat that was saying something in your state? They said there will be no ICE cars sold in Connecticut. I think you said
that was Mike Larkin.
Was it after 2035? As part of that mandate, I'm assuming it's a bill, the state bill or something of that nature, I'm guessing.
Yep.
Is there also a contingency in the budget for probably $5 to $10 billion worth of infrastructure required to make that happen?
Yeah, it's unicorns and rainbows in here in Connecticut. We think we're in California.
No, Michael, you're incorrect. Anybody, it's an estate close to Bernie Sanders, will just take everybody else's money and use it. He never heard the Margaret Thatcher quote that socialism is great till you run out of everybody else's money.
So,
Right.
so here's the challenge. We all know that the government put out the infrastructure bill or law to put this money.
Wait a minute, which government? The government that has the senile old guy that opened the border, or the one that has the incompetent son of the former one that locked up truckers and froze their bank accounts? I just want to make sure I know who to criticize and sneer at.
I hate to say, Larry, both of them.
Okay,
and
we got
in fact,
unanimity. I don't know about the car market, but we've got
in
unanimity.
fact, our and I will use our term, our village idiot went to a city in
Wait a minute.
Alberta.
Rhonda just got a text from the Village Idiot Anti-Defamation League. They do not want to be equated with your guy. Sorry. Find another analogy.
So I'll call him the VI then.
There we go.
Went to Calgary, which is like saying to someone in Yankee Stadium that the Boston Red Sox are the best team in the world. You're just not gonna, or go to Philly and say anything about any other sports team and try and live to see another day. Well, he went to Calgary and told the Calgarians that he was the Wayne Gretzky of politics, and he knew what was going on long before it ever happened. And
Calgarians, that's a word?
yes, Calgarians.
Listen,
It's a word,
at this time of night, we make stuff
does he
up.
not realize that Wayne Gretzky played for Edmonton, not
Yeah.
Calgary?
Yeah,
He's a little bit off the mark sometimes.
And Calgary hates Edmonton, and so that he used the best player that Edmonton ever had to refer to.
Make a point.
Absolute idiot. But in saying
Wait a minute. If we then translated that to the States, would that make Biden the Heller Keller? Not forget it.
Yeah, no, don't do it. Don't. Don't.
Yeah, I'll listen more than everybody else did when you say don't.
So having said all that, he like the current administration in 1600 Pennsylvania is telling everybody that they're going to be ready for this changeover. There is no possibility
None.
at all for a number of different factors. And one of the factors is there's not enough critical minerals. It's actually 85% controlled by the Chinese. How are you going to change that? You can't change that. You don't have the infrastructure. You don't have the power band. You don't have the ability for the road structures with the added weight. You do not have anything that is possible to get beyond a 20% maximum saturation point. It's a physical impossibility. It cannot happen. I was in the industry. I got out of it, just like Howard's unfortunate friends that launched their IPOs. They're probably out of it too. But I got out of it because I saw the writing was on the wall, and this was long before AOC got in with the Green New Deal and tried to convince the world that it can be a better place if we knock down all the skyscrapers and rebuilt them with energy efficient building materials. Like, it can't happen. Like, it's never going to happen. But some political zealots decided that, hey, this might be a good idea. Anyways, that we're getting off the wrong track here.
It's actually the main point is right now the grid in the United States is at capacity and beyond.
Yeah.
It's not a matter
Rhonda, in
of chargers at
California, it's
every
beyond capacity. They have brownouts frequently.
Yeah.
And if they were to go to 100% capacity,
Mhm.
it would be impossible.
It
You know,
is impossible
listen,
because I think that what they would say is you have a choice. You can have your electric vehicle or you can have electric in your home, but you can't have both.
Rhonda,
Well-
it's really simple. We for every elected official that's logical and reasonable, there's about 50 that don't make any sense. The obvious
number's
answer
higher.
here is to say, if you want an electric vehicle, great.
Mhm.
If you want a hybrid, maybe even better. But I don't think anybody would knock it, right? Tony looked ecstatic driving his vehicle. They're fast, they've got some cool things. Okay, it's great. But the idea of mandating something that, as everybody agrees, we're not prepared for financially, we would have to enrich China beyond human comprehension when all they're trying to do is destroy us. It's just nuts.
Yeah.
The premise, it's a faulty premise. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and of course, having a government force people to do anything is very Hitlerian. Sorry.
Well, you shouldn't rub that in because it's 2 days after tax day.
Well, I
Right.
get that, but you know what? It's like saying everybody has to buy broccoli on Tuesday.
I'm expanding my language. Hitlerian?
Hitler,
Yeah,
Is
that
that
was
a
that
word?
was
that
a
kind of
phrase.
socialist where he
Let
would
me
say
help him. That was a phrase turned by the Calgarians.
Hitler
Calgary.
decided.
Well,
that
there's
you-
Edmontonians and there's Calgarians.
Well, listen, us Philadelphians talk funny.
Yeah.
That's a new
Hitler
cereal.
decided that you could keep your company as long as you produced what he wanted you to produce. So it was that kind of socialism. He redefined socialism in that sense, and it's the same thing. It's like if you tell people they must have an electric car, somebody's got to produce it. So in a sense, he's telling companies you must produce the electric car. Socialism.
Well, look at, okay, if we look at it in that manner and as a starting point, you look at how much money Ford has lost, how many times they've stopped production of the F-150 because they just cannot stick more on dealer lots because the cost of floor plan is going through the roof. If you look at the top 20 cars with rebates on them, 18 of them are some form of electric. They're dying on the vine.
Right.
You look at what Ford turned around and said to the dealer body. He said, to be a Ford dealership, you must invest $1.2 million into charging infrastructure. It's they
How many cars do you have to
Yeah.
sell to make that money?
think about how
Too
you're
many.
you're at to recover that 1.2 million dollars. That's a 20-year recovery. A 20-year recovery for most dealers.
Is Ford financing that $1.2 million?
No,
No.
it's the same concept, Rhonda, that as my friend Howard will tell you, they constantly pressure the dealers to improve their facilities to the tune of millions of dollars. And then the farther along you go with that, the bigger your buildings get, the more you hear whispers that they'd like to just sell cars online and eliminate the deal. What am I going to do with the building? Turn it into a Best Buy?
Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting, and realistically, and I hate saying this, Toyota had it right. Toyota absolutely had it right. And they said, hold on, we're pumping the brakes on electric because we don't know what's going to go on. We don't believe that this is going to happen. We're pumping the brakes on inventory because we know that once this situation is over with I hate saying it, the face diapers, we're in a position that people we're gonna be flooded with inventory, and everyone that is bought is upside down in their cars for the next 5 years. So the dealers are gonna suffer. They were the smart company that right now they are at 36-day supply in their dealership. 36 days. Do you know what a CDJR dealership is? 162 days supply on average. So think about that. 6 times the time to change inventory in a CDJR dealership than a Toyota dealership. Who's in the driver's seat right now? And that all comes along, and they say, hold on, Toyota doesn't have any electric cars. They got one. Tony's driving it. And how did they get it out on the road? They put a $20,000 US rebate on it. $20,000. Of course, it's going to lease out at $100.
Going to dry up. When the rebates dry up, are they going to sell how many electric cars?
No, they're not going to produce the car again. They're going to dissolve the production of that car and take them off the dealer's lot. That's what they do because they don't want it tied to their name. It's gone. And that's what happens with a smart manufacturer. They turn around and they dissolve cars that don't sell. They eliminate them because they know that to keep things moving properly, they have to keep the funnels flowing. And all it does is clog the funnels. It's the cholesterol of the arteries is going to be EVs in the dealership world. And I don't care what the coasts do not dictate the reality. And that's proven. You talk to any person in New Jersey, any person in any state other than Washington, Oregon, and California, which have the highest penetration of EV at 20%. But hold on, what is an EV as dictated? And I called this out from the car dealership guy. An EV in the United States is anything with an additional battery. It could be a PHEV, it could be a mild hybrid, or it could be an EV. That's the concern, and that's where they get the numbers from. The actuality, it's under 1%. So it's
Peter, as far as the mandates, listen, all kidding aside, anybody that understands the problem with government is that they don't run it like a business. That the answer is always to throw money at problems. Howard, you were Nissan, we were General Motors, and we used to laugh at General Motors. We used to say it's ready, fire, aim. There's no logic. You know, I think we'd solve every problem we have in both our respective countries, Peter, if a large percentage of what they were paid, the senators, the congressmen, the president, came out of what they produced. You know, let like anything else. Yeah, you had a great year, right? Howard, you didn't pay a salesman because he was handsome. The more they sold, the more they got paid on. But
Very simple.
yeah, we're backwards here. It's like, okay, let's just keep pouring on the deficit. I'm not bashing Biden, just state the fact.
Well,
It's really simple. If you have high inflation, you raise the rates to tamp down the economy. But to do that and continuously overspend, like the college bailouts, is insane. It's like you charge up your credit cards to the point where you're going to go broke. Your brother-in-law lends you the money to pay it off. The next day, you charge it back up. It's a cycle that's going to lead to the doom of everything. So if people are that illogical in how they deal with business premises and throwing money at problems without any kind, Howard, I don't know if you saw it. They spent like 10, 12, 20 billion dollars on the homeless in California. And they can't figure out where the money went. Now we know this happened with de Blasio's wife. She took $1 billion for mental health, which is a great idea. Yet not one person was helped, and nobody knows where the money went. So if that's who, imagine your old stores and you had a controller, and you said, "Let me see the statement." Oh, we brought in 600,000 this month. What we spend, 4 million. I think you'd fire everybody in the store, and the controller would be out on his butt. But it would be even scarier if you said to the controller, what brought this loss? What initiated this loss? I don't know. So again, the Elon Musk is a brilliant guy. He's a visionary. Okay, you can't flood somebody. The hybrid was an incredible idea because you threw the two ideas together. But again, whether you love EVs, whether you hate them, even the most ardent, even a John Ellis who lives and dies by them, knows you can't possibly get every car on the road to be electric in 10 years. It's physically, financially, and practically impossible. So the fact that these idiots, hey, listen, I make mistakes all the time. I turn around and say, I went in the wrong direction. That's a mistake. If you can't we're a giant ship, and it's impossible to turn around. And they're like the Titanic heading for an iceberg. But only this chance is everybody sees the iceberg, and and we're helpless to turn around with it. Really, it's sad because I think a lot of people are going to get caught in the backwash with this. I think there's going to be a lot of jobs lost and a lot of income shifted in the wrong direction.
I saw, and I have to agree with you there, Larry. It's economically, and I purchased my first Tesla 100% economically, and for the economic reasons of it. I looked at, my wife was driving a Jag, and for the cost of the Jag versus the cost of the Tesla, and the fuel savings that we would have based on the mileage we're doing, and that we got free charging, unlimited charging for the life of the car, it became a free car.
But Peter, you did a cost estimate, sat down with a pen and a piece of paper and said, this might be cost effective.
Exactly. I didn't buy it because it was green. I didn't buy it because it was a good car, because it isn't. I didn't buy it because it had features that anyone else didn't have, because Cadillac had the Super Cruise, and Volvo had lane departure for years. The Tesla didn't even have a coat hook in it. That's how crazy it is. There's no coat hook in a Tesla. The whole roof is glass, and you have no sunshade. So there's absolute stupidity under the design as well. But when you look at it, I bought it for a purpose, a absolute purpose, and the purpose was it's a tool, and it got me from point A to point B at the lowest possible cost, and that's why I had it. That's why unfortunately I replaced it, because they had to take my first one back because it decided to try to kill me. So they gave me another one.
Problem.
Are you sure that wasn't your wife, Peter?
Oh, I know it wasn't my wife, and because it was relying on directions, and my wife doesn't have any directional skills. So having said that, they took that one back, but in the meantime, they said, here, take this one, and used that one and it took a year to get my next one. And then I had another one, and then I had another one, because that one came in, and it was just a horrendous car company to deal with. But it was the tool that I was after, and the tool made sense to me. Now the tool doesn't make any sense to me, so I won't have one. And that's what we're talking about here, is the mandate. How can you mandate something that no one wants? It's like giving someone a screwdriver and say, use it as a hammer. It doesn't make any sense.
You can do that in other
You can,
societies, but not ours.
yeah,
We're not
but
used
you
You're
to that.
definitely not talking to the right people then.
yeah,
Definitely not talking to the right people. I can use anything as a hammer, brother. I can use
Yeah.
absolutely anything as a hammer.
Joshua, it's worse than you think.
but
I'm
is it
Jewish, and I
efficient?
thought a screwdriver was a hammer.
Is it efficient? You can use a screwdriver as a hammer. You can use the back of your shoe as a hammer. But is it actually the right tool for the job? No. The question becomes, how do we, and again, I'm not anti-EV. I'm EV friendly. And it's just that I'm not an EV fanatic like the greenies are. And and the funny part about it is they don't actually understand that Volvo, the most sustainable car company in the world, that looks out, that they name their actual sponsorship the Ocean Race, which is a sailboat race around the world, and it's all about the environment. They actually built a car out of recyclable plastic to show that they could. They turned around and said it can take up to 120,000 miles for an EV to become carbon positive. So it's, even they said it. And as such, their electric car company, Polestar, is in dramatic trouble. They've lost 35% of their sales. So and the venture capital company pulled out from supporting them. The venture capital company pulled out of supporting Lucid. The Rivian is in trouble. They're all in trouble. Fisker, it'll be lucky if Fisker makes next month. So how can you push us on that? Hold on. The only car company that's actually growing leaps and bounds is BYD. And where are they out of? China. And where are they going to manufacture their cars? Mexico. So that they can actually enter in the country without tariff. So it's a challenge that we have to either understand economically that where is the money actually going, and who is controlling this money. And that's the biggest challenge. It's not that it's good for the environment, because it's not. It's not that there's any positive aspects of it. And I wrote about it, and I said the only time an electric car is actually carbon friendly is during operation. It's not when it's getting charged. It's not prior to being charged. It's only when it's actually in operation. That is the only time it's carbon friendly. So it's a massive challenge, and it's educating the people to recognize why they're buying it. Yeah, sure, they're rocket ships. My Tesla did 0 to 60 in 2 seconds flat. It was the fastest car I've ever driven in my entire life. So fast that my brother-in-law, who owns multiple Ferraris, was scared it was so fast. It's that fast. It's motorcycle fast, and Josh will agree with that. And they're just bullets. They're fast, but they're not good cars. They're just instantaneous electricity provided to a motor that allows it to go from point A to point B very quickly. So where does it come down to, and what is the benefit of an EV, and how do we look at this as an industry? Because first of all, and I will say that I'll put this question to Howard. Howard, would you give up 20% of your revenue at the dealership just because you didn't like something? No. It'd be asinine. It would be dumb. And any dealership out there that's saying, I'm not going to participate in the EVs is dumb, because that could attribute to as high as 20%. EVs are actually, the studies have shown over the last 2 years, the average RO in the service department is higher on an EV than it is on a ICE vehicle. So the amount of cost going into EVs is higher than ICE. So it would be asinine for a dealership to walk away from it, but we do have dealerships saying that. The second part of it is, why would you even think about that? If there was an opportunity to gain that extra income and gain that extra growth as a dealership, why would you walk away from it? Train your people to understand them. Train your people to be able to service them. Train your people to embrace them. Give the cars to your people to drive. Get that understanding. Hey, you know what? I can tell you right now, I have an iPhone here. In 2007, when they came out, I adapted to it because I wanted some of the features on it. People will adapt. You won't have 100% migration, but you will have adoption of the practices of EVs. So why shy away? You're as I said earlier, you're only going to get a penetration of about 20%, and then you're at complete saturation across the United States. You're not going to get any more than that. So why not adapt and allow your dealership to make that additional income?
Peter, I think that was well said. Howard, Josh, Michael, Rhonda, if you have any other comments, let's hear them. If not, we certainly
Just
appreciate,
to
as
add to
always, hearing
to
from you
what
folks.
Peter said, whatever the investment that a dealer has to make for that extra 20% may be way too much for him to make the money back.
That's the cost calculation, and that's exactly what I did with my Tesla. Did it make sense for me to drive one or not? Did it make sense for me to continue? And Jim True, who used to be a Ford dealership or own a Ford dealership, gave it back because of this. He looked at the cost calculation based on where his dealership was and the return of that, and he just gave it back. Now, the problem with that is he lost his lifetime investment on that, and he only returned out of the property. He never got goodwill out of it, which is unfortunate.
Anyone have anything else? Howard, Josh, Mike?
The biggest challenge I see, and I was getting into that earlier on, is we talked about it and we joke about it, but not only is educating the guests of the stores whether it's the right fit, the right tool for them, like as Peter denotes, educating the technicians and the advisors and the parts people, everything that is required in order to make them the best experience for the guest, right? We need to triple down on training across the board, from salespeople to technicians to parts people to advisors, right? It's an entirely different experience driving an electric vehicle from start to finish. It's an entirely different experience. But at the same time, because maintenance and things like that are significantly reduced, because there's 20 or 30% less parts on the car, they still need to be serviced. They're more expensive, but it's still, there's less there to regularly service. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't come in at the same intervals we're seeing now. The once a year, the once every 6 months needs to stay. And the common impression that I get from the conversations I've had just in the last 2 months, as my wife and I talk to friends and family and acquaintances, like, we're in the buying process right now. Oh, what are you looking at buying? And we go through the list, and Tesla comes up, and hybrids and battery electric comes up. And it's like, oh, are you afraid it's going to be, too short? And like we're talking about range anxiety, and we talked about those things. The general masses still don't understand what it's like to own one. And even once they do own one, they don't really understand that they need to treat it just like they would the ICE car. It still needs to go in for regular service. It needs to be checked by a professional to make sure they're safe and on the road. I think the general consensus is that they don't understand that they need to do that. Oh, well, it's electric. I don't need to go in for service. I don't need to get it checked out. I don't need to.
I'll give you one example just on that, Josh. Most people don't realize that electric cars have to get their oils changed. And they go, it's electric. Why does it need oil change? Well, the oil is actually in the drive motors to keep the drive motors cooled, and because of the friction. And if you don't change it, it turns into molasses. And if you
just like a
don't
differential.
yeah, if you don't change it, you lose your half shafts. I looked at a 2019 Tesla with 45,000 miles today on the auction, and it called for 2 half shafts at $1,800 a piece because no one changed the oil in the car, and it wasn't under warranty. So yes, the people do not understand that these cars are not maintenance free, and they are not they're not this plug in and drive like the perception is, because the intelligence getting out there is not intelligence, it's ignorance, and that's the biggest challenge. So
I agree.
Howard, you look like you
So-
have something on your mind.
Yeah, we got a long ways to go, guys.
Oh.
I know EVs are there. They're in the headlines because it's sexy, it's new. Last year, it comprised less than 8% of total new car sales. And just for the record, in 2022, 278 million vehicles were registered in the United States. So electric vehicles as a whole comprises about this much. Now, a part of me, believe it or not, Larry, I love a free market economy. All right. And if government would just get their ass out of there,
Absolutely.
all right, and let the economy drive it,
Exactly.
Because the problem is, but I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole right now. There's a lot of confusion in the air, but boiling back to the dealership level, as a dealer, how much do I invest in EV knowledge and as a whole? When it only, and again, remember too, of that 7% a big chunk of that is Tesla itself. What do those electric vehicles really comprise with other manufacturers? And I agree with you, Peter. Toyota made the smart move. Hybrid makes sense. And I wish if the government was going to get involved right now, that's where they would go, because that's the transition. All right. As I said before, 14 years ago, I invested in setting up my dealership for EVs because we got our first Leafs in. All right. I'm going to tell you right now, whatever they say, everyone talks about 2035, whatever. No, this is a slow moving beast. It always has been. And we got a long ways to go.
Hey, Howard, one slight deviation. I always like to quote Aristotle, who said, the only thing that can be shared without anyone being deprived is knowledge. So as far as training people, that's the play. Because if somebody is interested, you don't want to look stupid. What scares me is when they force, infrastructure costs and those kind of things, because they're a fixed cost. And as you found out the hard way, it's just throwing the money out the window. But as far as training people, I think everybody should be able to explain as best as they can their car, their competitors' cars, what they have on the lot used, if they did a used car lot, and electric.
Well, here's one last thing to think about. If you look at it, what came first? The EV in cars? You know the answer, and it's not ICE. It was EV. EV was there was battery car powered vehicles before there were gas powered vehicles, and people don't realize that it's been around for as long as the car's been around, and it's never been successful because it doesn't make sense. And it's not that big nasty oil is out there using its lobbyists to manufacture challenges. No, it's not. It's because it doesn't make sense. You cannot have a situation that you can drive the amount of kilometers or miles, depending on what country you're in, unlimited, with unlimited worry that you can continue on your travels. You have to stop with an EV. End of story.
All right, Michael, Joshua, any final words? Nope. Well, in that case, it was just a pleasure seeing the three of you. And
just before, Larry, I just want to say something. Tomorrow night on the Automotive Innovators and Disruptors, I have two very special people speaking. One is on this call right now, Joshua Taylor. He's going to be talking about the mental health in the dealership. And I have Tanisha White, who's going to be talking about wellness in the dealership and how important it is to have your staff under a lowered stress level. So it's a very important call tomorrow night, or room tomorrow night, on the Automotive Innovators and Disruptors. So I look forward to seeing everyone who can join, and I especially look forward to hearing what Josh has dragged through the old statistic machine that he has.
Howard, Joshua, Michael, as always, Rhonda, Peter, thank you all so much. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking to you all soon, and see you tomorrow on Peter's show.
Thanks, everybody.